What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. And today I've got a story time that was sent in to me by a subscriber about their former roommate, who might be the worst roommate that I've heard about. All right, probably not the worst ever, but a pretty bad one. They had a pretty good job right out of high school, and they decided that they were going to take a break from college for a year, just skip it, and focus on their job. And in order to do that, you know, they needed to get an apartment closer. So he ended up finding a bedroom in a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 other dudes. And he went over there to meet them and make sure everything was going to be chill. And when he went over there, the apartment was pretty clean, you know. It wasn't insanely dirty. There was like a couple dishes in the sink, but whatever, it didn't really matter to him. And one of the roommates was super aggressive with the questioning, asking him like if he was ever going to be loud or dirty, because he really couldn't tolerate that. And he was kind of confused with how angrily he was asking the question, but he answered it honestly. He's like, yeah, I mean, at some point, if I live here, I probably will be a little bit messy or a little bit loud. But if you got an issue and you tell me to be quiet, I won't have a problem being quiet. And if I wake up the next morning and it's messy, then I'm going to clean up after myself. You know, which is a fair way to answer that question, but he just kind of assumed the guy maybe was like a little bit of a neat freak and was just really bothered by messes. So he just didn't really want to cause that big of a deal about it. And so we're going to call the neat freak guy Jake, or alleged neat freak guy Jake. Anyways, after he kind of said like, oh, I'll clean up after myself, Jake decided to excuse himself for a second and stepped out there. And the other roommate, Barry, was like, listen, dude, I'll be honest, living with Jake kinda sucks, but the roommate situation isn't bad with me, and it's pretty cheap, so it's not that bad. And so that kind of like brought the guy over. He's like, all right, at least I'm not the only one seeing Jake's a little bit weird. So he decided, whatever, I'll move in here because it's close to work and it's cheap. So, you know, he decides to move in like 3 days later. And when he moves in, the house definitely was not as clean as it was the first time he went over. It was a little bit messier, but once again, it wasn't that bad, just some dishes in the sink, which he thought once again could have just been like, hey, they cooked dinner after work, they're tired, they went to bed, whatever, they'll do them at another time. He thought it was just them being busy for the night or whatever, which, you know, in like an apartment with 3 dudes, yeah, sometimes the dishes are gonna pile up a little bit. And as long as they get cleaned, that's all that matters, and they don't like start stinking up the place. So he ends up moving in, and on the first night, the dishes still aren't done. And so he just kind of politely asked them, like, oh, do you guys plan on doing the dishes? And Barry was like, yeah, man, of course, I'll help you. And Jake was like, yeah, no, I don't really feel like helping. And he also said it doesn't even smell yet, so it's not like they have to do it. Which in and of itself is a pretty big red flag. I mean, listen, I'm not saying I'm the cleanest person in the world. I'm not bald. I'm not Mr. Clean out here. That being said, you know, even if I've waited a little bit to do the dishes, if you usually are sitting around going, well, it doesn't stink yet, I don't know, you might obviously be waiting a little bit too long. Like if your standard for doing the dishes is, well, I can't smell the food rotting yet, so there's just really no need for it to be clean, you might be a messy person. And this is the same guy that was being aggressive about like cleaning questions during the roommate interview thing, so he was just really thrown off. But whatever, him and Barry end up doing the dishes while Jake just kind of sits there and watches. And it wasn't that bad, so he's just like, maybe Jake's in a bad mood, you know, the comment about like it doesn't stink yet was weird, but I don't know, maybe he's just pissed off. And he ended up hanging out with them for the rest of the night, and the entire time Jake was just really pissed off and aggressive, and they end up going to bed at like 11 p.m. And this guy's room was right next to Jake's, and at about 11 p.m., right when they got to bed, is when the yelling started. Jake was playing some sort of online game with bad teammates apparently, and the only reason he knew that is because he was like screaming at them as loud as possible. Which, you know, listen, I'm not gonna say I've never raged at a video game, I've never gotten mad at a video game. That being said, if you like have really thin walls and it's 11 p.m. and you know everyone else is sleeping, it's probably not the time to be screaming at video games. I feel like in general, if you have roommates, you just kind of can't be screaming full volume anymore. Like obviously everybody's gotten mad at video games, you know, but you gotta remember, if you have roommates, you just can't be screaming late at night, especially if you're in an apartment with like crappy walls where everyone can hear everything. And so he's annoyed because he can't sleep with the screaming, so he goes and knocks on Jake's door, and he's like, Jake, bro, listen, the walls are pretty thin, I gotta work tomorrow, can you please stop screaming? Like, please. Which is not too bad, sure. I'm sure he doesn't like to be told to stop screaming, but overall, that's like the nicest way you could have asked him to stop screaming. You could have walked into his room and been like, yo, bro, shut up, you're being a moron and annoying me, but no, instead he just knocked on the door and was like, hey, can you please keep it down, I gotta work tomorrow. But Jake did not like that, even if it was like the nicest phrased question of all time. He did not want to to be told to stop screaming. And he starts yelling at his new roommate who had moved in that day. What did you say to me, bro? Like, you're the new roommate. You have no right to tell me anything. Get out of my room, you moron. Like, I don't want to see you ever again. And the dude is literally surprised at how angry Jake has gotten because he feels like he didn't really ask for that much, you know, especially for that angry of a response to just like get that mad, get out of my room, you are a moron, when someone's just like, hey, can you please keep it down? So he gets pretty pissed off and he decides to like not take that from Jake. And he says, hey, shut your mouth and keep it down or I'm going to come in there and unplug your computer. You know, and I don't think anyone had ever talked back to Jake in his entire life because Jake looks over pissed off. But when he looks over pissed off, instead of saying anything or talking trash, he looks at him and he kind of realizes, oh, this dude's not kidding. Like, he will come in here and unplug my computer, you know? It was kind of obvious he was just used to screaming at people and them like not really doing anything about it. And he didn't actually want to get into a fight. So he looks at him and he's like, okay, fine, I'll keep it down. All right, are you happy now? And he's like, yeah, sick. And so it's a very awkward interaction, but he figures it's over. He stood up to him, so maybe he just like will leave him alone now, you know? So he goes back to his room and he lays down and he hears Jake, because the walls are pretty crappy. He's not yelling, but he's just talking trash to whoever is on his team online about his roommate, just being like, oh, if that guy would have actually tried to come unplug my computer, I would have flung him through the wall, you know? He's lucky I didn't feel like fighting. And obviously this pisses off the dude who's hearing it, but he's like, whatever, as long as he keeps it down and I can sleep and go to work, it's fine, you know? He's gonna suck as a roommate. Like, this is when he has the realization, like, this guy's just gonna suck. I should probably get out of here as fast as possible. He's not gonna be fun to live with, but he's not screaming, and if I keep fighting back and forth with him, I'm gonna be up all night, so whatever. I'll let him talk trash to these people online. I don't care. And so he ends up getting to sleep, and Jake the entire time is just telling these people online, like, yeah, I would have beat him up, bro, for sure. Like, if he came in to turn off my computer, dude, I would have just destroyed him. Which is funny, because as soon as he looked over, he was like, okay, you're right, I'll keep it down, sir. Anyways, the next day comes, he goes to work, and he just does his thing. He comes home from work, obviously pretty exhausted, and he walks in, and there's a new pile of dishes that are stacked up. You know, a brand new, disgusting pile of dishes. He knows Barry isn't home because he's at work, and he hears Jake in his room screaming at a video game, and he's annoyed, but he's like, you know what, I'm not doing the dishes, I'm going to my room. So he goes in and just starts working on something on his laptop that he needed to do tomorrow for work. And like a couple hours later, he hears Barry come home, and he only hears him come home because he starts yelling in the living room, Jake, get out here, Jake. And he hears Jake's doors open and someone walking out there, and he's like, dude, why are there dishes in the sink again? And Jake's like, man, I had to cook. And Barry's like, well, then you need to do the dishes, bro. And Jake's response to that is, yeah, I don't really do those. And Barry stops for a second and then goes, well, then stop cooking. What do you even say to that, man? Let me get this straight. So you're gonna cook and fill the sink up with dishes, but you know, you don't really do dishes, you just do the cooking thing. Part of living is cleaning up after yourself, you know? It's not like your roommates are always gonna be around to do the dishes, especially because you don't do them. Like, what does that even mean, bro? Have you never done dishes in your life? Like, do you usually throw away the casserole dish when you're done with it? You don't even keep it? You don't take it back to grandma's? Like, how have you never done dishes in your life? Obviously, that pisses off Barry, and Barry tells him, like, look, you either need to start doing dishes or you're gonna get banned from the kitchen. Which, you know, I don't really know if you can ban him from the kitchen. I don't know if that's fair, but that being said, dude, if someone was just making you clean up after them 24/7 and just being annoying about it, yeah, you know, you're probably gonna get pissed off and you're just gonna be like, no, you don't get to use the kitchen anymore, you know? Probably not something you can actually enforce, but still, Barry's just over cleaning up after this grown man who apparently just does not do dishes. Jake, though, obviously doesn't like this threat, and so he starts going off about how, I don't even need roommates. You realize that my parents pay for this apartment, you know? This is my place. I'm just being nice by letting you guys live there, which does explain a lot as to why he's just like, I don't care about this place at all, because he's not the one paying for it. You know, if mom and dad are paying for it, then technically all the money he's getting from renting to these dudes is probably just going straight to his pocket. So whatever, he probably just really does not care about this at all. And so Barry snaps back and he's like, Jake, you don't have a job, bro. I know for a fact that you just take the money that we give you for rent and just use it to live on. I know you don't tell your parents that we live here because every time they visit, I have to go somewhere else because they pay for the whole apartment. You think I haven't figured this out, bro? You think I don't realize what's going on? It's fine because it's a really good deal on this apartment, but I know for a fact that your parents don't know you're renting out these rooms because they're paying for the whole apartment. which, you know, I'm not gonna lie that it's a smart idea, but yeah, it's probably pretty shady to like be renting out this apartment room that your parents think you're using to like study and then pocket all the money and not tell them. That's pretty shady, bro. You know, like, listen, dude, you don't have to work at all. You don't go to school. You just kind of sit here and play video games as your parents pay for the apartment, and you just like keep milking people that rent the rooms. And, you know, if I was his parents and I found out about it, I'd be pissed. And then Barry says he also knows that Jake dropped out of college. So basically what had gone on, then Barry continues to explain, is like Jake had come to college and had made this deal with his parents that they would pay for the apartment on the condition that he finishes school and has a job. You know, those were the two rules if they were going to pay for the apartment. And he had just dropped out and quit his job and didn't tell them. And so Barry is like, listen, bro, you got two options. You're going to threaten me and say you don't need me here? That's okay. You're going to do the dishes, or I'm going to tell your parents about you dropping out of school and quitting your job. And the person who sent this to me, remember, it's his second day in the apartment, and he's literally listening to this through the door. And as he's listening to this and hearing more and more about what's going on, he's like, I got to get out of here, bro. This is insane. Like, I just don't want to live here. This is too dramatic. This is too much. When his parents come, I'm not like hiding in the closet while they're here. This is ridiculous. So he starts messaging everyone he knows about an empty room. One of the things is that he hadn't signed anything. Like, there's no contract that he is here or he has to stay here. Because obviously, with Jake's little plan, he couldn't put them on the lease because, you know, the parents would be able to find out that, like, oh, there's two other people on the lease, you know. So the way it was working out is Barry and this dude are renting rooms kind of on like a handshake agreement. So he had just moved in. He hadn't moved all of his stuff in. He hadn't bought a lot. So he's like, look, I need to just get out of here. And the second a room opens up anywhere else, I gotta dip. And so he hears Jake doing the dishes, and he hears, like, you know, just the clattering of dishes and him screaming about how this is unfair and he can't believe humanity hasn't made a dishwashing robot yet. Which, I mean, dishwasher, bro, we kind of did. I guess he's like wanting Cogsworth from Fallout 4 to be out here doing his dishes, which, I mean, I think we all do, but it doesn't exist yet. And even then, you still have to clean up after yourself, bro. Like, okay, we agree that there should be a robot to do all of our chores, you know, ideally, but it doesn't exist. So until then, you gotta do it. And he's like just complaining the entire time, and Barry is not having it. And he's like, Jake, shut up, bro. If you keep complaining, I'm gonna move out. And Jake replies to Barry about how, like, you're too poor to afford to rent anywhere else, so you can't move out anyways. And they're just going back and forth, just insulting each other. And, you know, he's listening through the door still, and he's like, I gotta move out, bro. This is just toxic. Like, this is just toxic. They're fighting like an old married couple. They hate each other. And as he's thinking to himself how awful it is to live here, it's almost like the clouds opened up, because he gets a message back from one of the new coworkers at his job who he had been hanging out with at work. And he's like, listen, I have a room, you know, it's the same price as that room. And he literally texts the guy back. He's like, all right, I'll be there tonight. And he replies like, LOL, haha, okay, thinking he's kidding. You know, he's like, there's no way this guy's gonna actually move here tonight. But little did he know that the guy was legitimately that desperate to get out of here. He did not want to live with Jake and Barry anymore. And he doesn't come out of his room for the rest of the night. He just didn't want to interact with them. He didn't feel the need, and he waits for everyone to go to bed. He hears Barry's room go quiet. He figures he's asleep, and he hears Jake screaming at his computer. So he's like, well, he's distracted. And so he decides that, like, if Jake's screaming at his video game, he's just not going to come out and check on anything. And Barry's asleep, so whatever. If he wakes up, that sucks, so I'm going to try to be quiet. And as quietly and precisely as he could, he starts, like, moving all of his stuff out of the apartment. You know, he had a twin bed, so that's pretty easy to get to his truck. Then his bed, then his desk, and that was really all he had because he had just moved in. So, like, over the course of an hour, he's just slowly clearing out his room into his truck to just get out of there and never have to come back. And after an hour, he does it. Obviously, Jake doesn't come out and check. He doesn't wake up Barry, and so he loads everything up and drives to his new apartment, and he gets there, and the coworker's like, bro, I thought you were kidding. And he's like, no, I told you I was moving in tonight. And he's like, okay. Literally, like, eating popcorn, confused, because he's like, I did not expect you to be here. And he's like, listen, dude, the other place I was at was just rough. I had to get out of there. So he moves all of his stuff into the room. It doesn't take that long because he doesn't have to be, like, insanely quiet this time. And this roommate was a lot better. He actually was on the lease, and he stayed there for a few years. So this was obviously a much better situation. But back to Jake and Barry, you know, obviously the next morning they wake up and they realize that their new roommate is gone. His room empty, he's not there, and Jake starts freaking out because obviously he didn't have a job. He was taking the money from renting the rooms to like live on, so he sends him this threatening text being like, you broke the lease and technically I can sue you because we had a legal agreement that you would live here for a year. And he's like, yeah bro, our agreement was me just saying I'd live there for a year. I never signed anything and I'm not on the lease, so like that doesn't mean anything. And Jake was pretty pissed off, but once he realized there really was nothing he could do about it, he was like, well, you suck for that. Barry, on the other hand, though, was basically envious, you know? He's like, I wish I would have thought of to do that sooner, you know? I really got to get out of here. And like, now that Jake's realized that that we actually can leave because we're not on the lease, he's like actually starting to do dishes, but it's still messy. And he's just kind of listening to Barry vent, and he's like, yeah, that sucks, bro. That's why I moved out, you know? He's like, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm not living with that. And he's like, listen, Barry, just leave. Like, you're not on the lease. Like, you can just leave. It's not worth dealing with that crap, dude. There's plenty of places that will let you move in and rent a room and won't make you be a maid, you know, for no money. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a maid if you're getting paid, right? Like, it's a job. But no, I don't want to live with somebody that just expects me to clean up after them 24/7 for free. Like, what is this, dude? No, thank you. Yet, like, especially with somebody who just doesn't feel the need to clean. Like, it would just bug me if there were always dishes in the sink that were smelly and like just rotting food. That would bug me, you know? And if it doesn't bug that person, you're always going to end up cleaning because they just don't care about the rotting food in the sink. I feel like anyone who expects their roommates to just be screamed at and do all their chores probably shouldn't have roommates, you know? It's probably easier said than done, but still, dude, if I was Jake's parents and I found out about this arrangement, I would be pretty pissed off. And listen, I've had some pretty bad roommates, you know, but thankfully no one's been demanding that I pay all their bills and clean up after them. Anyways, guys, that'll do it for the video, though. I know this one was a little shorter, but hey, dog, I thought it was pretty entertaining nonetheless. Bad roommate stories tend to be entertaining, you know? I will say it's not as bad as like the worst roommate series on Netflix where like people die, but still, cleaning up after people is not fun, okay? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Anyways, if you did enjoy the video, I'd appreciate you taking a second to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. And of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on those notifications. If you really want to help me out, I do post the audio versions of these on Spotify. So if you want to give it a listen offline without gameplay, whatever floats your boat, link down below. But yeah, on that note, that'll do it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.